always ask myself why. What's going on? Why did I feel this way? Why did that impact me the way that it did? I think most human beings don't find their why, their purpose in life.
Self-aware leaders know what's happening to them and because of them. Has purpose ever not been enough for you? Welcome back to another episode of the New Rose Podcast. It's your girl, Breezy, and I am here with the incredible Mr. Adrian Crawford.
Wow, incredible. I appreciate
you
that.
You are incredible.
I appreciate
You don't tell
that.
yourself that enough, do you?
I don't.
But I do. It's a good thing I do.
You do. I appreciate that. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes I gotta just, give a daily mantra in the mirror, try to remind myself who I am. So it's usually a rap lyric or something.
Oh, yeah. What'd you do today?
Trying to think of a rap lyric I'll do. Oh man, why am I blanking?
What's that Jay-Z one?
No, no, not that one.
You can't say that one.
I'm not saying that one. It was guys, one from Juvenile. I can't remember.
Juvenile.
Yeah, you a paper chaser. You got your block on fire, remaining the G. You know what it is to make something out of nothing. You handle your biz, so don't be crying. Yeah, anyway.
Let's go.
Anyway, all right, here we go.
Great.
All right, focus. Here we go.
Today we're going to talk a little bit about something that you discussed with our staff yesterday in Culture Creators. Kind of the premise of this topic is about how we can have vision, but if we don't create and curate the systems that are needed in order to propel that vision forward, it will fall flat. So we're going to talk a lot about how you build the internal frameworks in order to create the external realities that we desire to see. We're going to go through 4 different styles of systems: behavioral systems, self-awareness mechanisms, adaptability and flexibility, and also purpose alignment. So before we jump into those, can you share a little bit about why you believe that this topic is important and what compelled you to bring it up to our staff this week?
Yeah, it's very important because I think that a lot of times, when you start talking about the idea of vision, we talk a lot about vision, and vision is incredibly important. That's something we've been talking about with our staff, of how you see clear, because of vision. If you don't have a vision, you begin to go in many different directions. One of my favorite proverbs, without, when there's no vision, the people cast off restraints. And that actually, what it means is that people live undisciplined lives. And when you don't have a clear vision, but now that you have a vision, it's more than that. You now are going in a direction, you see where you want to go, but now you got to create a system in order to go there, because if not, what you'll end up doing is spending a lot of wasted energy. I think sometimes with people, I don't know if you ever had that moment where you go throughout your day and you've worked hard, but then you get to the end of your day and you're like, what did I do? Did I really accomplish anything? And many times we feel that way is because it may be we weren't heading in a direction that we need to head in. We were working hard, but maybe working in the wrong direction, or maybe working on something that wasn't really propelling us forward toward really what we need to be taking care of. And so that is one of the reasons why. And I think a lot of times you have to have systems in place, because what systems allow you to do, it creates energy that lasts beyond you. It allows you to have energy to kind of move forward throughout the day and push energy in the right direction.
How would you define vision?
It's something that you feel is very tangible, that you can go chase, that's in the future, that actually lines up to like your mission, your purpose, actual calling and skill set. I also believe a part of vision is something that's actually advancing humanity, moving it forward.
How would you define systems?
I believe systems are really just guardrails that allow you to move forward. They're steps that move you in a direction. They keep you in line to move in the right direction. And so it's kind of like, step by step by step, and they add to each other and they build on each other in order to push something forward.
I think we have a lot of listeners who are more on the creative end. And a lot of the times you hear the word systems and you just get mad. Like, you think of this incredibly rigid structure. So I'd love for you to describe a little bit about how your perspective on systems, rituals, routines, how that has evolved over time as someone who leans more towards the visionary aspect of things.
It's been a real evolution, because I think, being ADHD, that's a part of, kind of my makeup. And so it has a lot of benefits at times, but sometimes it has negatives, because you can be all over the place. And what I learned, again, probably around, almost like 13 years ago, was like how important systems were. Because what we talk about, like you said, systems, it feels like it's going to like stifle our creativity. Actually, what systems should do is actually allow our creativity to flourish more. And that's what I started realizing, because I started realizing I was wasting so much energy on stuff that if I just had a very clear system for it, then I wouldn't have to think about it, and I wouldn't have to take the mental energy to kind of do that. You know what I mean? Some people are very step by step process oriented. I'm not. So if somebody, I'm going to go from step A to F, you know what I'm saying? And then back to B and go from there. And sometimes it's not the most efficient. But what I realize that if I have a very clear system that's in place, it allows me just to use that. And I don't have to use that much energy to just do sometimes daily things. And it allows me to really use energy toward a very much so a creative thing. And so even when I'm doing talks and things like that, which I feel like I'm creating art when I do that, I have a system of what I'm trying to accomplish. I have a process of where I'm trying to take people to. And that's helped me so much versus just being just this random abstract thing.
How do you differentiate internal and external systems?
Yeah, I think internal systems are way that you process emotions, way that you process how you view the world and see the world. I think external are now the actual practical steps to bring those what's happening in here to bring those into reality out there. And so that's why we always talk about the internal parts of you have to be really in order really well, because if they're not, what you'll do is you'll create external systems, and those external systems will end up producing, if you have internal things that aren't right, it'll produce external things that aren't right. And so that's why we care so much here about really working and having a genuine understanding of why we feel the way we feel, what drives us, our why, because of that reality, your internal systems are just going to play out in reality.
Something you said that I love is internal routines preserve your energy for what actually matters. Starting off with behavioral systems, daily structures that drive consistency. What are some habits that you have curated for where you're at seasonally right now that create a level of consistency but still support the vision that you're trying to propel forward?
Yeah, here's something that's seems very like micro level, but we make 25, 35 like micro decisions before we get going in our day. And so one of the things I started finding myself is in the morning, man, being really frustrated, like just picking out what I was going to wear, because once I wake up, your mind gets to going. I'm like, and so what I started doing is like, I was getting frustrated. So now I just created a habit to where at night, if I take a shower, when I take a shower at night, I go and I just lay out my clothes for the next day. Then the vitamins, my medicine, I lay that out for the next day. So when I wake up, those are two decisions I don't have to think about, because what happens though, even though it seems smaller, that energy toward making small decisions, eventually if you make a bunch of small decisions, that's still energy. And eventually the energy you need for a bigger decision may not be there later in the day. And the reason why I did that is because winning my morning is so important to me. I realize I am a way more effective person, a way more effective leader, a way more effective husband, father, when I can win my morning. And so winning my morning means how do I make my morning as efficient as it can be so that I can do the practices I need to do in order to push things forward and get wins really early. And so that's really important for me. And so that's something very simple that's helped me now in the day-to-day into making bigger decisions and having room and being able to have the brain, the mental capacity to make the decision I need to make on larger issues.
So that's kind of an example of an external structure that supports your internals for the morning time. Practically, when you used to wake up in the morning and you're thinking like, what am I going to wear? Like, what am I going to eat? All these different decisions. Once you took having to make those decisions away, what do you now think about instead?
That's great. What I also did too, and this will say, is like I have like a block on my phone for social media, right? Because what I would do is that when I didn't realize I was doing this, but when you start to feel like you get a little bit, names say overwhelmed, but you just kind of like, I don't feel like making decisions, so you procrastinate. So then you just start scrolling, right? So that's one of the things I do. So now what I do is like when I get up, it allows me to like get out of the house much faster. You know what I mean? And so what I mean by that, it allows me, once I get up, I want to be very clear on mission. That's what I'm trying to do in the morning. As soon as I wake up, I want to be moving in a clear direction, not just wandering aimlessly, because like my ADD will make me do that, right? Where I'll just sit there and I can just wander aimlessly. And then all of a sudden it goes into, man, I just wasted 30, 40 minutes just kind of like thinking about nothing or just trying to pick this out or do that, versus like when I wake up in the morning, I want to set the tone that I'm moving forward today. And so that's the reason why. So what it's really allowed me to do is when I get up, it's like, it is just a very clear thing. This is what I'm doing. I go, do all the stuff, get dressed, you know what I'm saying? pick my scent out. I have to do that at night too, because I love
Your
cologne.
scent.
I have to put my scent out at night. You know what I'm saying? Cologne.
At first, I thought you said sin. I was like, I got to pick my
Put
sin out.
Yeah,
Okay.
but no, pick my scent out, do that, and then one of the things I do is I go, what I'm saying, say goodbye to my wife, kiss my wife, and then I go to my car, and then normally what I'll do is I literally pray for my kids, so I'll voice memo them, all three of them, in the morning, and I'll do that, and then I'm going to a coffee shop, whatever, and then I'm just kind of starting my day. So that's what sets the tone for my day, that I'm going forward in my day, not just wandering in my day.
So whenever you would spend time scrolling on social media, and back in the day, you used to wake up and jump on Twitter,
dude,
which is crazy behavior.
Dude, that is like psychopath
Crazy behavior. What would that sabotage for your emotionality and your thinking?
It really started, man. It would make me, you start reading stuff, then you start getting angry. And then beyond getting angry, it's like honestly, my body just started to like just feel off, because I'm just sitting there for like an hour or whatever. You're just sitting there scrolling, reading stuff, and it's just not productive. I mean, I may have learned a little bit of information, but it's like I'm just kind of scrolling just to scroll. And so what happens is that I would feel way more like not to say shame, but I feel like I wasn't like getting my day started right. And so it would then just linger into the next thing, and I feel like I was behind. And so that was kind of what it was. And it was just, you just kind of found yourself in that thing. And then there's still moments here and there where it happens. You know what I'm saying? I don't go to Twitter for sure. You know what I'm saying? Maybe IG or something like that. But for the most part, I really tried to work hard not to do that when I wake up.
So moving on to self-awareness mechanisms, which is the second one that we want to touch on. We talk about self-awareness a ton. I think it's valuable here and there to make sure that we redefine or explain how we define self-awareness. For those who might not have caught it in previous episodes, we do not define self-awareness as simply just knowing what you feel. That's not how we define authenticity either. We define self-awareness as a conscious understanding of your thoughts, your feelings, your motivations, desires, and the deepest level of why. There was something that you said yesterday that I really enjoyed, that is self-aware leaders know what's happening to them and because of them. How often do you pay attention to your patterns?
A lot. A lot. And it's been
About how many times a day do you think you're thinking about it?
About it? Probably, I don't know, 15. It's just so ingrained. You talk about a system. It's literally become a system. Is that if I start to feel some type of way, it's instantly I go to, okay, why, and why, right? I go to, it just becomes such a part of my everyday now. And the reason why I do that is because if you don't do that, then later in the day, when I may have to make a decision, I'm still impacted by something earlier that I didn't process well. And so I think that that's one of the things I do. I'm always asking myself, why? What's going on? Why did I feel this way? Why did that impact me the way that it did? Good or bad? You know what I'm saying? Like, for example, you asked me a question yesterday where I think we were talking about like the morning. I was like, oh yeah, it went great. It was really good. Like I started reading and things I felt like my body was like, I felt great. And then you said, why? And it was like, and I'm trying to be better. And I'm really good at like when I feel like a negative emotion, I'm trying to be better at when I feel something positive. Okay, why do I feel that way? And so even this morning, I was reading, I was doing my thing, and it felt good. I'm like, okay, why? And so I try to just.
What did you uncover?
I think what I uncovered was that I am, during those days, I'm doing things that are very life-giving, like to me, and it's actually feeding me. Most of the day, I spend my time giving. So what happens is that I'm realizing now that because I spend my day giving, I've got to start my day by being actually like invested, like filled up, you know what I'm saying? And one of the main ways I do that is my connection with God. I do that in my growth as a leadership standpoint. And I think that's really important so that when I go through my day, I really can give, because what I do sometimes is when I'm not doing that, I'll just start going and you start to run on empty, and you feel it impactful in your body. Like it's one of the things they would say about Martin Luther King. They said Martin Luther King used to wake up at 4:30. And one of the reasons why he would say 4:30, he would read, he would read, he would pray, he would do these things. They asked him why. He's like, because I spend most of my day giving everything out. And if I do not do that in the morning, if I do not find a way to connect to my creator and get filled up, I'm going to be giving from a place that's not going to eventually be healthy. And I think that's really important for every leader. I think why daily practices or whatever that looks like for you matters is because you have to be filled up because if you really are leading in the right way, you are actually when you lead, you're just giving out throughout your day. That doesn't mean you don't get people who give you encouragement, or there's a moment where you're learning stuff, you know what I'm saying? And, or, or being corrected. It actually helps you get better. But a lot of times, a leader, you're just investing throughout your day. And what most leaders do is they just keep going. So just imagine you have a car that you just, you're just barely putting enough gas in your car. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes we're just riding it, like past E. And you say, well, I know my car. You know what I'm saying? I got 20 miles left, even when it hits the light. I think that you have to just know yourself, but you have to be filling yourself up.
Mm-hmm. There has kind of been this rise, I feel like, over the past few years of the wellness and the fitness gurus, the sauna, the cold plunge, the morning routine, the evening routine, the afternoon, the coffee.
Have you seen that guy that everybody's been talking about, the fitness influencer? Have you seen it yet? This football player.
A little bit more, yeah.
Yeah, this football player puts a tape over his mouth in the morning. Like, literally puts the tape over his mouth, dumps his head like in this ice bucket. So Lauren will cue this up somewhere special in the thing. And it's like he has this ice bucket. He drinks a certain type of water, and everybody's going crazy because my man gets up at 4 o'clock, and it's just like the most absurd stuff he's doing. Like, he's about to make a call, and he has like this like certain type of water, and he dumps his face in a bucket of water and like screams and does this. It's just like, it's like the epicenter of what you're just saying. Of like, yes, that.
And to be fair, that probably works for him.
Yes.
It probably works for the intense lifestyle, the physicality that he's prioritized, the vision that he has for his life. But we intake all of this content that says what we should be doing. How have you developed a self-awareness where when you're looking at practices like that, you can tell what practice is going to help me optimize my thinking, optimize my leadership, rather than just doing what everybody else is doing or what somebody says has been helpful to them?
Yeah, that's really good. I think it's understanding. We talked about it a few episodes back, understanding the seasons of life you're in. Like I've said, like one, people talk about the idea of like meditation or silence and solitude. Well, I believe in this season that's really important for me, but it wasn't in other seasons. Doesn't mean that it wasn't something I've done in moments, but it wasn't as like important. So I think you have to understand, first of all, what season you're in. I think too, you have to understand like self to know like what actually brings you joy, what brings you life. Some people love to read. You know what I mean? And that brings them so much life to like, man, they've got to read. And it's like they feel connected when they read. Some people, man, it's writing. Some people, it's in the beginning, it's just they've got to start with exercising in the morning, right? I mean, whatever it may be, I think you got to find out, man, what actually brings you energy and joy, like early in the morning or when you're starting your day, and then kind of go from there. And you can learn from people. You may see like, oh, that fits me a little bit. You know what I mean? Like I'm watching this guy and it's like, yeah, like dumping my face in like a bucket of water at like freaking 4:30. No, I'm good, big dog. That ain't doing a whole lot for me, right? Or whatever. But like for certain things it does. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I'll go to the sauna early. And that actually is helpful. Sometimes I go midday. But anyway, I just think you have to know yourself and what brings you joy. I think so many times, like, yes, we want to do difficult things. But I think sometimes people just, they say, man, do difficult things every day. Well, here's what happens. It's like life is difficult. And again, I think we should do difficult things. You should do things that are pushing you every day. But a lot of times, maybe your work, maybe your job, maybe things in your family are already pushing you. And then you're going to kind of, I got to keep doing these things. No, you're already doing enough that's pushing you. You may need to do some things that actually get you to kind of be filled up a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. But how do you know? Like when you wake up in the morning and you're like, today, I got to go to the sauna. I don't want to. It's 6 a.m. When I do it, I'm not necessarily going to feel better. Like, what is the thing that you're paying attention to that tells you that that's the right thing for you to do? Yeah. And that it might not be the thing for you to do every day.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's when I'm going, like, here's one. If I know, like, for example, with the sauna, like, that's really important for me right now. So if I have not done it in a few days, and what happens, we just build routines, right? And so what I'll do is like, okay, well, I'll go later. And then like, I've said that for like 3 days. So sometimes I'm like, nope, I'm going this morning. I do not care. I'm going this morning. Because if I go this morning, I know for sure it's going to get done. And I can't put myself in a situation where then I start building a pattern or habit of not going. And so that will be one. The other thing, I think physically, I feel it. The one thing about when I go there, I'll go in there and a lot of times I'll just sit in silence for 15 or 20 minutes. And so if my body feels like I need that, you know what I'm saying? Maybe I am just like, I'm really like wired or I'm feeling like maybe some physical pain or whatever, sometimes I'll just like go do that and even jump in, do the cold plunge or something like that, right? And so like those are just kind of ways. So for me, many times it's understanding like, man, I don't rhythms. The other thing for me is understanding like how I'm physically feeling with something like that.
How can you tell when a practice is good, but it's not the greatest practice for you and it's not enhancing what it is that you need to focus on that season?
Yeah, for me is if I'm doing the practice, not that it's difficult, but it's like I'm like dreading doing it, not because it's difficult. It's just like, oh, I have to do this, right? Like, oh, here we go. I have to, like, you're just like, you're doing out of obligation, not out of like getting better. Because I mean, there's a lot of things that I don't like to do. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, like, I mean, we the sauna, sometimes I think it's 200 degrees in there. You're like, yeah, man, like, I don't feel like going there, I feel like I'm in hell, like, or Starbucks, like,
the
oven.
gym bros are sitting next to you.
Yeah, gym bros,
sweating,
yeah, freaking
they're
like,
dripping cold plunge water. They
yeah,
smell funny. They're
freaking
throwing ice inside the.
Nick is in there and he decides to go in. It's already hot enough, and then my man Nick goes in there and
dumps the ice.
Dumps the ice on top of the thing and makes it even hotter. I'm like, all right, and then he's in there for like 7 minutes and leave. I'm like, big dog, we're here for like 20, and he gets out of here. So like, it's just stuff like that. But anyway, where are we going? Oh, it's so I think. But what was the question again?
I don't know.
Oh my gosh, you asked me. It was about.
Like, how can you tell that it's enhancing that season?
I think what you end up doing is, like I said, you just don't dread doing it, right? You're willing to go do it, but you actually are excited when you finish. When you're doing something, you're like, oh, I gotta go do it. And even when you finish, you're like, great, I did it. Like, that may be something to listen to. I think we live in a world right now where where people have to become very aware personally of what's happening in them. Because what we will do is that we will, especially now, we'll listen to, like freaking podcast bros, and everybody says, you do difficult things every single day. But like, what if you literally are emotionally, like literally suffering through something right now that's at a very high level? You lost someone, maybe you're going through a breakup or whatever. Like, going out there and saying, you know what, I'm about to go out there and freaking go, I don't know, climb a mountain or something right now. You're like, no, you're already in enough pain, all right, chief? Like, you're
maybe
good.
The hard thing is looking inside.
Yeah, maybe the hard thing is like, you know what, maybe for you, the thing you need to do right now is to actually just to go and just, man, and enjoy something. You know what I mean? Go do something that's actually that you really enjoy. One of the rhythms of my life that I try to do, like, I like playing like NBA 2K. That is a rhythm. Why? Because it's one of the most mindless things I can do, and I actually enjoy doing it. And so that is a part of a rhythm is important to me, just like it is getting up and going to the sauna or doing whatever.
Personally, I love TikTok. Some people are against it.
I think that's what I tell people. Again, everybody goes in there and they start talking about, oh man, you're doing that, it's wrong. Don't go on social media. Some people go in there with social media, and it's just it just decompresses them, right? They just go, they scroll. You may learn something, you may find something, because again, like I tell people on TikTok, there's a lot of stuff, especially when you curate your algorithm. Like, man, it could be stuff on fashion or art or music or whatever, and it's just like, oh man, it's like funny things. It just, you enjoy it, and I'm like, that's okay. It's just the problem becomes when you end up you go there to avoidance. Yeah, absolutely.
So the next thing is adaptability and flexibility. Rigid systems break and transition, but resilient systems bend and restabilize. I would love to talk about this one from more of an organizational perspective. We've been focusing a lot on the individual. So how do you know when a system is no longer useful to an organization?
I believe you start to see a slowdown in like production. I also think that what begins to happen, you begin to feel more and more like stress and stressors, to where now all of a sudden, where the system used to flow really well, now all of a sudden you find yourself like in something that used to just kind of be natural or be going well, you're like, oh, we got it now. It's like we're spending more time. There's more opportunities or more things falling through the cracks now because of like the system, because maybe you've outgrown that system or whatever. And so I think what you look for stressors. I think that's a great way to tell if the system's working, or maybe you just need to tweak it a little bit, or maybe, man, it's completely done and you got to start with a new system. I tell people that's what a lot of organizational growth is. Organizational growth is literally just like creating systems to then blow them up and create other ones. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's pretty much what it is.
Do you have any examples that you've experienced recently?
Yeah, I would say that in the expansion of our organization, you think about over the last few months, it's been great stuff, but it's like, man, we have started, really a new division within what we're doing. We started a new company in what we're doing. Within the idea of the church, it was like it's growing at a very, again, at a very healthy pace. And again, our podcast stuff we're doing here, things are, we're thinking we want to enhance that. I think coaching things we're doing. So there's just a lot. And so what started to happen is like, man, I had to start, the things I was able to manage, I couldn't do that anymore. So I had to start putting people in certain places and really give real power and authority away in different ways, and then take a different step up in my leadership now. And so that was a practical way where I had to start giving some things away and begin to move up a little bit more in order to build some things out so that we can move more fast, more effectively, and more efficiently.
Is there anywhere that you feel you're still stuck in an old model?
Yeah, you know what? I think I get stuck in the old model sometimes of I feel responsible for everything that we do. And so what I will do is when I see a problem, I have to fight really hard not to just jump in and fix it. Because what I want to do is I know the feeling of making difficult choices or having to feel that pressure. And what I'll do is like, man, I want things to be better for those who come behind me. But what I've realized is so many times I rob them of the pressure that actually grew me. And so I have to fight that, not stepping in, because I can probably solve it a lot faster, but I have to let them go through their process of doing it because it helps grow them and mature them. And that's one of our values here is development. And development is not only what we're teaching or talking about in culture creators. It's about, giving people the opportunity to have to go build and do stuff and learn through mistakes and so on and so forth.
At what point did that serve the organization well?
It served the organization well when you're building it, when you first start, because, it's like you're having to put the culture in every part of it. And so that's been some of the works when we first were starting, whether if it was starting with doing the, our consulting firm, or starting when we first started the church and we were building that, or the basketball skill academy, all that. It was, you had to just be involved with everything because you want your culture to be there. And so it did help, and you're just ripping and running and growing. But when it comes to a point, though, where we talked about earlier, those systems start to break because now things start to fall through the cracks because you just are one person and you don't have to. So you have to create systems that begin to allow the real culture and what you want to start to move throughout the organization.
So the next one is purpose alignment. Purpose gives meaning to each of the decisions that we make. Something you said yesterday was if your actions, decisions, and systems don't point back to your purpose, you will end up being successful in the wrong thing. And I thought that was a wonderful way to phrase it. Have you ever felt like you've ended up being successful in the wrong thing?
Yes. Yes. I feel like because I have opportunity, and I think there's levels of skill set that I have, that there's a lot of things I can do and be relatively pretty good at it. But it doesn't mean it's the thing I'm supposed to do. And so I have to constantly remind myself of that. I know one of the things, unlocking authenticity as well, this goal and dream, and how do we launch 1 million authentic leaders into the world? Well, I could go do some things that are cool, creative, and whatever, but is it pushing toward that? Especially right now with where I'm at in life, is that I want to be able to make sure whatever I'm doing is pushing stuff that's really allowing me to unlock authenticity. And a lot of times that's being disruptive, and that's changing systems to build a more healthy so others can flourish. And then in that, you build leaders out of there. But I have to make sure I'm doing it, because I found myself doing some things and I'm like, and then you're like, man, it's great. I've even made money doing it. But in the end, I'm like, what really was it for? And even though like it pushed this forward, I think my purpose and mission, I didn't push that down. And eventually I feel that, at first it's everybody likes news, so you're fine. But very quickly, if you're doing the wrong thing, you'll get very tired of it really quick, because it's not fuel. It's not from a place of fuel of what you're actually, your why.
What really is purpose?
I think what purpose is the internal thing that I think you're born with that wakes you up, that's willing to get you out of the bed, that's willing to make you suffer, that's willing to make you sacrifice, that's willing to make you where if you could do it every hour, if you had unlimited amount of you didn't have to sleep, you would want to do it. I think that's actual purpose. When you find that, that's what it is. And I can tell you that right now, I feel like I've over years I've had this, but I've really honed into this, because now, man, going to sleep for me is a little bit painful for me. I go to bed and I have to sleep, because you have to sleep to have what you need. But I literally cannot wait to wake up just so I can get back to doing it. and all those things. And it's really cool when you can do that. And it's really cool when you're pushing forward. And then this past weekend, I was thinking about that. Like I brought my daughter with me, with one of the clients that we're working with, and she was just with me in there, and watching that and watching her even like talk about different things. And that's what happens. What I think, when you really find purpose, you inspire other people not to do what you do, but to actually, they begin to be inspired by, man, doing something of work. Because I think that's the thing, when people, they ask me a lot, they're like, how do you do the things that you do? And I get it. I appreciate their like concern, but like, I just love what I get to do. Like, I really do. It's painful. There's all this stuff, but I really love what I get to do. And I think so many times, like, I'll slow down doing stuff, not because I feel like I'm supposed to, just because I'm paranoid. I'm like, oh man, am I doing too much? What's going on? But I feel like I'm in a groove. I feel like when I feel like there's just a less of a weight, I just feel like I'm just in a flow state. I can just do a lot, and I like doing it, because I feel like if I'm here on this earth, like, the point of being on this earth is to give things so that this place is better. And so why I have all the breath, the ability to do that, I actually want to do that.
Has purpose ever not been enough for you?
Yeah, but I don't think it was like really like the purpose I was called to walk in. I think when I was out of my insecurity and my kind of past, I didn't think what I was doing was enough. And a lot of times I couldn't see that. And so I felt like it was accomplishments, goals, titles, certain amount of money, that was ultimately the purpose and the thing. And so what I would do is go chase that. And if I wasn't getting whatever that scoreboard goal was, I felt like it wasn't enough. But truth be told is that if I really would have pulled myself away from that, and as I started unpacking the unhealthy emotions, I started realizing I had been walking in my purpose. I just couldn't tell because it didn't look a certain way, and that's where we talk about, like, it's the container versus the content. I think when you really understand the content of what you're called to bring to the world, then you're fine when the containers begin to go, because a lot of times we get caught up in the container feeling like we're not walking in purpose versus man, when you really begin to find the why, that why can flow through any container, through any job, through any type of environment, because you actually are very clear of actually who you are.
So out of these 4 pillars, behavioral, self-awareness, adaptability, and purpose, is there any that you would say are the most important to become an expert in?
Purpose. I think it's really digging into the why, but they all kind of build on each other, and I didn't do them in like certain order. They were just there, but I think purpose is important, but I think you got to become self-aware to figure that out. And then once you figure that out, you got to have behavioral systems, but then to keep those behavioral systems, you got to be able to you got to be able to bend and flex, because in different seasons of time in life. But I would say it's the why. I think most human beings don't find their why, their purpose in life. And at best, what they do is they find a job. Like I say all the time, it was said by Phil Knight, you don't want to find a job, you want to find a calling. Jobs change, calling doesn't. And so that is the thing. If I could, like I said, if I could literally inject that into any human being, if I could, any type of, a magic drug, it would be that part. It would be the idea of, like, they could find very clear their why. Because if they found their why, it allows you to go through things. It allows you to suffer. It allows you just to see the world different. It allows you to find joy even in the midst of, though society may feel like what you're doing isn't like valuable, right? But you find value in it because it's really, you can see living out your real hardwired skills and abilities that you've been endowed with. And so I think that's the most important one. All right. Well, guys, I hope today was actually helpful. And here's my one challenge for you, is to actually look at one of these 4 and then actually just do an audit. Like, how do you do with this? Do you have good behavioral systems? Are you self-aware? Are you flexible in the things that you actually are doing and in the systems that you have in your life? Because here's what can happen. You can hear these things. You can be inspired by things. You can be motivated by things, but those have to go into something. You have to then begin to create a system in order for those things to become a reality. So that is my challenge for us today. Let's look at these 4 pillars that we looked at and actually do an audit. And until next time, keep writing new rules.